everybody. I'm Wes Warren. I'm here with Greg Stanley. Today's topic is about not losing. Are you in position with your assets to lose half of your net worth over the next few years? And that is our concern, that some people are positioned in such a way that that could happen to you. So Greg, we want to interview you and hear what you have to say about this and find out what you think, like a dangerous portfolio looks like, that this could happen.
It's almost a dangerous mindset that I'm more concerned about. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
A lot of our people, a lot of our doctors, are those who follow our podcasts and so forth, they have retirement in mind. Even though we might talk about a practice management topic, their mind is on retirement. How can I get an associate to fill in the gaps, et cetera, et cetera. What I don't want to see happen to our doctors is them to get swept up into the thinking that hurt so many doctors in the 1980s. In the early 80s, inflation was very much like it is right now. Real estate was exactly like it is right now, maybe for a different reason. Right now, real estate's being driven by shortages. It's not low interest driving real estate. That's why when interest rates went up, real estate didn't just collapse across the board. It kind of stayed in motion. Real estate is being driven right now by shortage, but there's many things in play that will fix that in 1 year or less, according to so-called experts. So when that happens, real estate normalizes, if there's such a thing. So what I fear is our doctors all of a sudden looking up, seeing that whatever their bet was in, stocks, which were great for a long time, real estate, so forth, and it's gone down or it's going down, and they're saying, wow, that hurt, but I'm still okay, I can still retire. In other words, they're still intact mentally. What happens though if it continues? And here's how it happens. Real estate has a tendency to shear off. You wake up one day and Zillow shows your house underwater. With the stock market, the way it tends to sink you is a 400 or 500 point drop per day. And while that's a small amount now, if that keeps going day after day, by the time you wake up to the problem, you're in trouble. And so once you get in this zone where you're feeling like, wow, my retirement's threatened, I don't know if I can spend as freely as I was spending. I don't know if I can live as comfortably. Will I have to practice longer? In other words, all these things start coming up.
Right.
And then you take on the mentality of the Las Vegas gambler. You know, we tend to think of gamblers. There's not many of, I don't know if I've only met a couple of doctors in my life, and one was an MD who was an addicted gambler. I think dentists, I think of them as being the most conservative lot on the planet, but they're still vulnerable to the thinking that traps the gambler. It goes like this. They're gambling with their extra money, the money that they brought to gamble with. And all of a sudden, boom, boom, it's gone. And so they double down. And now they're underwater. Now they have to get back to where they were. It's so hard to try to explain lost money gambling, because when you lose money in stocks, people will say, what were you thinking? Everybody knew the stock market was overpriced. What was on your mind? And they'll make you feel stupid. And so the doctor thinks, wow, maybe I do need to double down in whatever's big out there. One of the options tends to be talking to your broker about a more aggressive approach. Say, do you have something else, another mutual fund that's paying better? And they always, you can mark my words on that, they always have something that's paying better. And that's referred to in the brokerage world as a stock market hatchery. It's like a fish hatchery. They pull out the big ones and leave the little ones. what you can always do in the stock market is you can pull out something that's been going up really good, some sector in the market, and move your money over to that sector. Doesn't mean it'll keep doing good. That's always the problem. But watch out. This gambling mentality can strike you when you lose. If you lose, be humble, walk away from the tables, and simply reset your expectations. You can't say, I'm going to get that money back tomorrow.
So it's possible somebody's sitting there with 3 million thinking they're set for retirement in the stock market, and maybe they have some real estate, so they're sitting in a good position just before retirement. Stock market could drop by a third. And so they could see that 3 million turn into 2 million real quick. And that's when people go, I don't say psycho, but they turn to behavior that is classic. I mean, it's human behavior.
We've lived through this. Real estate comes back. It always has. I've seen it tank 3 times. The stock market, I've seen it tank over and over again. And some things that happen that most people aren't ready for. One is it takes longer to tank than you think it does, and it takes longer to come back than you think it does. When you take a hit, you've got to admit, I lost money. I'll just hang on. I'll just pull back. You kind of have to go back and reassess your assumptions. What did you invest in? Why were you investing in it? Was it just a broad spectrum mutual fund or something like that? Those things do tend to come back. When you bet on one stock or one sector, just kind of hoping you're going to hit a winner, now that one, you might do better to just admit you lost money. And the worst outcome being you got to stay in practice another year or two. But you got to get comfortable with the idea that there's times when there's nothing to invest in to get you a good return, nothing to help you get your money back. And it can easily be a year and a half, even 2 years. You have to just accept that. So as we face this, I encourage people to do that.
And how do you feel about bonds right now? I know the interest rates are starting to get, I know they're not back to historic norms yet, but they're starting to approach numbers that I don't want to say that are impressive because they're not yet. But as bonds really creep back into, let's say, muni bonds at 5%, paying 5%, is that something that you would encourage, or would you still have reservations?
No, I would encourage it with some caveats. I'd want to see very conservative bond issuers. I would want to see bonds responding to inflation. That's what they always did in the past. Bonds paid about 1% above inflation. So now we got inflation hitting, we might get some better bond yields.
Right.
Again, watch yourself, because odds are pretty good they'll have call features. The bond issuers kind of learned from their last bout to put some type of escape clause in there. But I would do it as long as if it was a 30-year bond with a 5-year buyback or something where they can get out, I'd still do it if it came anywhere near inflation. 6%, 7%, I'd be all over it. Because inflation historically, 4 or 5%, and you're getting, if you can get 5 or 6 in bonds, I'd be there. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So that's possible that could come back as an option. But right now, it's kind of hang tight. Don't put a lot of money into anything. Maybe even just let it pile up a little bit until things kind of calm down. Is that fair to say?
I think it is too, Wes. And I've been watching gold and silver and these things. And, you kind of look at those as a bellwether, how scared are people? And right now they're not loading up on those and driving those prices up. But yeah, what I'd like to have this broadcast lead to is calming people down. Don't try to win your money back by throwing bigger dice. It just hasn't worked in the past. Odds are it never will.
Any words of wisdom as people get, kind of nervous out there? with their finances?
Well,
Would
one
you,
thing,
would you
Wes,
stay in practice? I know that we talk about this a lot. A lot of people are on the edge of retirement and wanting to decide, should I retire? When should I retire? This year, next year? What's your thoughts there?
good question. I've kind of probably been seen by the people we've served as hyper conservative, kind of negative, don't do anything. And yet the truth is, over time, everything tends to come back. Like I said, you don't know when it's going to crash and you don't know how long it'll take to come back. But over time, the things we think of as, reasonable investments, stocks, bonds, real estate, they tend to be good, long-term investments. It's the second long I put in there that you got to pay attention to. They tend to work out. Now, but if you're saying, well, Greg, I'm 82, I don't have that second long term.
Right.
Again, you got to take it for what it is. You might have to trim your lifestyle a bit, take Social Security, drive a Toyota Camry and live on what you've got. And if you're in your 70s or 60s, maybe you have to practice another couple of years and enjoy it. The truth is, as time goes on, we have new generation, new set of problems. What I don't want to be doing is fighting the last war, fighting the new war with the old technology. But some of it tends to hold together. And I would say that the worst thing I ever see happen is to the thinking of the doctor, that he gets into that thought process where he can't accept a loss. In the romantic world, there's this person who can't be rejected. He becomes a stalker. You could become a stock stalker, because this stock jilted me. I've got to have my money back. If I could just talk to her, one more time, I could convince her. You could end up in that type of thinking with whatever investment cost you money.
So to summarize, be conservative, don't go crazy, be in a nice, diverse mutual fund. Don't be narrow because you could really get killed there. And watch bonds as they might creep back up above 5-6%. And we're saying just hold tight. Don't panic.
When I see how some of the municipalities handle their money in certain states, I couldn't get far enough away. To get far enough away, you'd have to have a spacesuit on.
I know we did this presentation a few years ago with, and what we were talking about then was staying away from certain states that had, negative growth, negative population growth, and were poorly run, like you're saying. And there's a whole list of them. I think there was 13 we listed, death spiral states.
That's probably more now. These were states that they took in revenue less money than they paid out in benefits for everything from the homeless to unemployment to you name it. They paid out more than they brought in. So that meant they were borrowing. And on some of those cases, it was hundreds of billions, like in Chicago and in Illinois and so forth, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so, yeah, I'd be very careful. I agree with Wes. You can definitely keep your eye open to what's going on in the bond world. We'll certainly notify you when the pieces come back together to make it a place you might want to go.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.